Welcome to Insight Builder channel. Why to use flows in CrewAI with your crews? How to code the flows and integrate your crews? This is the second part of the series where we were trying to understand the flows in CrewAI and the way of using the crews inside the flows. So what we are going to do is something that I got fascinated with Windsurf. So let me fire up Windsurf, and there is a feature called as Cascade. So if you guys have been following my videos, I have been trying to show you how the agentic nature of Windsurf can be implemented using CrewAI. So I got fascinated with this concept where you can actually make Windsurf to create files. You can make Windsurf to generate the completions of a prompt and then make it to write into a file. So this was one of the fascinating things, and so I was trying to understand this. That's when the flow concept came into picture, and we will see how to do that today, how to actually create files using flows. But before that, I want to show you what exactly happens. So let me close this folder, and I will reopen the folder in which I'm going to work right now. So I'm going to open the folder. I'm going to work on a folder that will be shared with you guys. So it will be in Crews and Flows Recipe Flow, right? So this will be the folder that I will be working upon, and there is already a couple of Python files available there. This Python files are the actual crews and flows that we will work upon. Fine. What I am right now going to do is I'm going to create a file here. Okay. And I am going to create a file, not manually, but I'm going to use the Windsurf to help me create the file. Okay, so what I'm going to say is kindly provide me the process of integrating CrewAI crews with CrewAI flows and update it inside the flow intro.md. This is the prompt that I'm going to give, right? And you will see that it actually goes to the documentation, it pulls the data, and it is saying I will create new flow intro.md file, and it starts creating the file. And in a moment you will see that the file gets updated in this place. We are going to replicate the same kind of behavior with the recipe crew and recipe flow.py. You saw that flow intro.md file came up. So this is actually the agentic nature of what is happening in the background. So there is a step of flows or step of methods that is going through, and then finally the flow underscore intro.md file is getting created. So let us accept this, and let us save this. So let this file be here, flow intro. This file was created by Windsurf, correct? We are now going to go back to our presentation, and if you have been following these videos, we would have already learned about the structured and unstructured flows, how the states are maintained there, and we would have understood the parts of the flows. If not, I would suggest you guys to take a look at my earlier videos. Now we are going to learn to code flows. We are going to understand how we can get Pydantic output models from the tasks. This is one of the important steps that I really missed it in the beginning. And then after I started diving deeper, I understood this particular Pydantic output is going to be the key aspect when you're going to use the agents and crews inside the flows. We'll be using Flow Kickoff inside the flows and using the flow to manage the state and share the information and Parse User input. So all these things we will see in this video. Before we do that, one of the point I wanted to highlight is how to actually think about the tasks and the flow, crew, agents, and tasks. These concepts are very important because I believe that flow and the crews are a way to break a very complex problem into smaller problems. I really liked, in fact, loved the way CrewAI developer had provided an opportunity for us to break a very big prompt into smaller prompts and make it very easy to attach tools to those prompts using the agents as well as the tasks. In addition, he went one more step, and it is possible already that you can use the structured output of the function calling LLMs. You can use that structured output that is coming from those LLMs, and you can use that for communicating between various crews. You'll be seeing that this is one of the important cornerstones in making this kind of a flow work. So in this case, the objective is user gives the name of a dish, number of persons to be served, and the recipe for the dish is returned to the output. So that is what we are going to get. The flow writes the name, targeted number, and the complete recipe along with the necessary quantity. So before we dive into the actual flow, let us actually review this. So the user input is going to happen in natural language. It's going to happen in natural language, and it is going to have the dish name and also the number of people served. When it comes to the first step of the flow, it's going to be the extraction crew, which is going to give the task output of dish name and the number served. This output is a Pydantic model. This Pydantic model is going to go to the next step. And this Pydantic model is part of the task. You see, we have to attach this Pydantic model to this task. We will see this in action in a couple of minutes. And the same thing happens in the next crew. So in case of the chef crew actually takes the input. This is going to be the input, right? The task output, the dish name and the number served will be the input for the next crew. And the next crew will take this as input. And just a second, this should be input. I made a mistake here, sorry about that. And the output will be a recipe data because the chef is going to write the data. He is not going to cook. He's just going to write the recipe based on the quantity of people it is going to serve, right? So here there is an example of number served is 5 and the chocolate cup. This crew only needs these two information. If you go up here, we will also need another one information called the file name. So I will add the file name. You may be wondering why I did not add it earlier, because once I was reviewing the Windsurf, then I realized, okay, I can actually create a similar kind of a flow that I showed you in Windsurf, and I can share how that can be done in CrewAI. In case of file name, you see that this file name is not going to be used in this input. So what will happen to that? We will see how the states help in managing that information. So we get the recipe data, and the recipe data is again the task output in a Pydantic format. So keep that in mind, and that actually goes. So here you can see that the crew output is basically a simple text, which is actually a recipe data. And then the file writing crew. So this file writing crew needs a file path. You see this? This file path will be the file name, correct? So that is what we will be using it here, and we will show how we can use the states of the flow to give the file path to this crew when it actually enters there. And also understand that each of the tasks and the agents have their own inputs, and these inputs have to match with the kickoff inputs that you are going to provide. These things will take some time for you to get hang of, so do practice a lot. Once you practice creating flows and agents by yourself, I know that you don't need to create the flows and agents by yourself. You can simply use the various no-code options available, because you can just go to CrewAI, you will get the templates, you will get the complete setup of the crew in no time. The point is that you will not be able to understand how these things are interacting with each other. You will not see how the data is flowing. So for that, you will have to practice it for a couple of times manually, and then you can actually start using those no code options. And finally, when the file is written, we get the file status output as flow complete. So that is how the entire flow works. So before we dive into the code, I am going to show you how the flow works. Let us open the flow here. It is under recipe flow. So this is the flow that I'm going to run, and I'm going to run it in this terminal. So this is the terminal that that is there inside my Lunar Vim. So let me do an ls right now, and you'll see there is this flow intro.md. So this is the file that Windsurf created. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, also I want to show you one thing. What I've done in case of this flow is, here I have already asked the flow to give me the recipe for the rice dumplings to serve 15 people. So I've already done this process, and write it to chef_recipe.md. So this process I've already done. So now let us see how this flow works. Okay. So I'm going to say simply Python, and I'm going to call recipe flow.py, and I'm going to press enter. You will see that the agents are pretty verbose. I have enabled verbose equal to true in both the tasks, agents, as well as the crew, so that we can see each and every step of the process. This is very important when you are learning. You can see immediately that the extract names of dishes and files is happening. That is the first task. And you get this details. You can see that it is extracting all these things, and it is based on the Pydantic model that we saw. And next we see the entire recipe along with the ingredients are getting updated. You can see the final answer, right? So it's all in colored format. CrewAI has done a wonderful job in these things, right? And then you can also see that the output again is a recipe data here, correct? But if you scroll down, when it goes to the write process, so the write process will have an error. The reason why it is failing is the way the file writer tool has been coded internally. It needs the directory. So here I was facing some challenges earlier because I had missed this .md./ Because of that, the writing created a problem. But now once I did that, you can see that it is able to write it. And if I now go back to Windsurf, you will see I have a chef_recipe.md. It is very similar to what Cascade did. So Cascade actually created flow_intro.md, and the flow that we use, the recipe flow that we ran in our terminal, created the chef_recipe.md. Now you know the reason why I am so much curious about this technology, right? If you go back to the presentation, you can see that there are a lot of things which is simply English. It's not actually coding, correct? You don't need to learn the complete syntax of the parsing process. You don't need to learn all the background of Python, in fact. But if you understand how the requirement of creating a recipe and then adding it to a file using the flow and using only English, if you understand this, then the power of agentic framework becomes evident. And moreover, if you want to actually extract a lot of different data or extract data from a complex data set, then you know that you need to create multiple tasks and also multiple crews, in fact, if you want, and you need to send it through a flow. So what will happen is your entire data will go one step after the other through the flow. It get extracted one by one, and if there is a failure in any of the data, it will actually get flagged, but rest of the data will get filled up and you will get the final output. So you will never lose any of the data. And moreover, the prompts are again separated. You'll see that I can actually create this entire thing in a single prompt. I don't need to have 3 different crews, Correct. I can simply take this user input, tell that, okay, you are in, I need to extract the file names from this prompt. And then I can say, okay, you are a MasterChef agent. You need to write the details for this file or this dish and this number of people. And you need to write it to this file path. I can do all these things in a single prompt. But why to separate it into multiple crews, multiple agents, and multiple tasks? Because the problem is broken into smaller parts. You are actually separating the concerns, meaning each part of the prompt is doing one task. This part of agent task is doing only one task. The chef crew is doing only one task. The file writing crew is doing only one task. So same way, there is a concept in Solid called a separation of concerns. So that concept is used here in a very lucid fashion. I like this very much, and moreover, anybody who is able to write the logic in English should be able to write the crews, because the syntax of the crews is pretty straightforward. You just need to create these roles, goals, and backstories. And in case of task, you need to create the task, the expected output, and the file writer agent. And then you need to give the task output as a Pydantic fashion. And you need to create this particular class. So I believe that understanding this and comparing it with tools like Windsurf and trying to understand what is going on in the backend will really help you a lot. Now that I have given you a complete overview, there are a couple of things that I will not be covering. That I will not be covering callbacks in this discussion. So callbacks is how you are actually getting these kinds of updates on the UI when the flow is happening. So that is how it is happening. That I will be covering later. If you have any questions apart from that, you can always leave me a comment. I will update it to you over the comments also. Let us go to the code right now. So let me close this, and in case of the recipe flow, what will happen is we have the crew. Let me go back to the crew. So right now I am in recipe_crew. You can see the file name here, and this recipe crew is basically a ditto copy of the data that you saw in this area. So this is the recipe crew is a ditto copy of the various crews that I have created here, right? I have not changed anything, even including this class. So I have created this class, right? So now let us go back. You can see that I am using LLM, that is GPT-4o mini. This is very, very important. When you are trying to develop agents, try to use this model. It is actually cheaper. By default, the CrewAI uses GPT-4o, which is actually costlier. Ensure that you are using this GPT-4o mini when you are working on it. And this file writer tool is the tool that I imported from CrewAI tools. This is the tool that actually writes the file to the file system that you saw. That is, what I meant is the chat_md file, the chat_recipe_md, this file was written by that writer tool. Let's go back. Then we have this extract format. This is the format that we want the first task to extract. So we want the dish name, we want the dish name, we want the number served, and the file name. Then we have the extraction agent. We took the role, goal, and the backstory along with verbose equal to true and LLM. So all these things we filled it up. The role, goal, and backstory you actually created. You have written it. When you decided to design the flow, you wrote all these things. You need to think about what kind of goals and roles the agents will have. Thinking about the role and the goal can be tough in the beginning. This is why I am insisting you to practice, because it might initially sound, okay, what is the difference between the role and the goal? It looks pretty similar, right? But it has differences. The main difference I want you to look at is that in case of the role, it is much more generic, but in case of the goal, it is very specific. I am telling to the agent that pull me the dish name, the file name, and the number of people. I am very, very explicit here. right? It is very similar to the task. I am repeating these things. So you can see that using the agents and the task, we are repeating the same thing. So in the task description also, we are saying extract the dish name, the number of people to be served for the input, from the input. So if you had looked at the output, so if you take a step, rewind a bit, and if you look at the verbose output from the agents and the task, you will see this description getting colored and printed there. So this is the description that gets printed there. Let me show it to you again. So let me execute and let me say recipe flow. Just a minute. And give it a second. So you will see that the first agent and its task gets highlighted after a moment. So this kind of going through the code and also understanding how the code is getting executed one by one and how the final file, you can see that here. You can see that you extract the names of the dishes, files, and quantity. That is from the agent, and you will see the task extract the dish name, number of people to be served, and the file name also is come here. This is actually coming from this area, right? So I want this kind of a clear understanding when you actually look at the code. You'll see that the extraction crew has been created in this location, and we are having just a simple one agent. We have the name, we have the task, and we have the verbose call output, and also we are moving to the chef. And also the chef task also we updated here. And in case of the chef crew, we are updating the agents as well as the tasks. And then comes the writer agent. Writer agent has its own tool. So this is where the tool comes into picture. So both the previous agents did not have any tools. They just had to use the LLM to get the output. So LLM was generating the output. LLM was doing the extraction of the file names, the dish name, etc. But now here we need a function or a native Python function to execute the file writing task or the file writing activity. That is why this file write tool has been used, and that has been assigned to this agent, and we are actually using that agent inside this task. Also, you might have seen that in the earlier position, I was not actually using the agent also, and the system was still working. So you will see that here there is no agent actually. So how is the crew functioning? As I told you, agent and task are all parts of the prompt. These agents and tasks, they are created separately, but in fact when the prompt as such is given to the LLM, it is all formed or structured together, and then it is given as a single prompt. So even though here I am not having the agent, still the extraction works. These are all kind of a hacking that you need to do and understand how the things work. So we have seen how the crews are created, correct? And also you saw that each of the format, the class chef format base model, this is the Pydantic base model that you see in this location. So this is the Pydantic base model that you are creating, that you are seeing in this place. Now we have seen the crews. Let's go to the flow. The flow is an extremely new concept for you guys. I know that we need to actually go into a very separate step-by-step process for creating structured flow, unstructured flow, to understand the different decorators like listen, start, router, etc. However, those things can be easily mastered. But the intention of this video is to show you the capability of the flow, to compare it with Windsurf Cascade. If you want to develop something which is similar to Windsurf Cascade, where the files are getting written to the file system, then you need to understand the flow. That is the purpose of this discussion. So I believe that you will be able to master the rest of the flow concepts. Do let me know if you have any questions. I'll be able to support you. But CrewAI has done a wonderful job. Their way of structuring the entire code base around the crews, flows, and task agents is pretty simple. I really loved it. And one more thing, you might be seeing that I'm not using any kind of YAML file. The reason is I prefer all the data in a single or two files max, so that I don't need to move between multiple files. You see, even here, when I'm trying to explain the code, I have to shift between the code and the Obsidian or the Excalibur picture, correct? I don't prefer that. It is always better to have it in a same place. So this will avoid the shift of concentration whenever you are actually moving between the applications. Fine. So here we are starting the recipe flow, and before we start, we are creating a state. And this recipe state is a structured state, meaning again we are using a Pydantic model to create input, string, recipe, data, and file name. So these are kind of a small catch variable that is going to be created inside the flow, where you can store the data. So the flow will keep on looking, will have access to this recipe state object. So that is one of the point I want you guys to remember. And now comes the recipe flow by itself. So the recipe flow has three methods. Three methods are the extraction method, the create recipe method, and the write recipe method. So now you must be wondering, so it's very similar to what we created in the crews, correct? Yeah, we are going to just go one by one, step by step. So we have broken the entire prompt, and we have actually separated the concerns. Each class or each agent will do one activity inside the crew and then give us output. So that's what you are seeing here. The start will be the extraction, and once the extraction is complete, the output of the extraction will be given to as an input to the create recipe method. So that is how it works. And the listen decorator will help for transferring the return statement. So this return that we are doing here will get automatically moved into this extraction output parameter. So that is how it works. So you can see there are a couple of print statements that I have commented out. You can actually uncomment it and you can check it when you are running this code. You will be able to see that. And also you can see that the self.state.file name, the file name that I'm extracting in the first step, I am actually storing it in the state. So this is how the state helps. So there could be parts of the output in the method. So extraction method has all the outputs. It will have the file name, it will have the dish name, it will have the number to be served. But the file name is not going to be used in create recipe. It is going to be used in write recipe. So we need to be careful to store the data, and that is where the state comes into picture. So it's kind of a catch. Next, we have the dict input, where we are going to take the extraction output from the extraction method. From this method, you see this here. We are going to take the extraction output, and then we are going to convert it into dictionary, and then we are going to make the second crew kickoff. That is the chef crew. And finally, this output is going to be again with recipe data that we are going to again convert it into dict, and then we are going to take the file name back. You see, we are actually taking the file name back and assigning it to a dictionary key, and then we are sending that into the writer crew kickoff. So this way of moving the data between the state, between the local variable, dictionary variables, is how the entire flow process works. So by now you must be thinking that the entire flow process looks as if that someone is manually moving the text data between the variables, right? It's like moving the water between the buckets. That is how the entire agent system is working, but it looks as if it's pretty automated. Yeah, it is automated. It's going to be automated because we are not actually using any logic, correct? We are using the decorators like listen, we are using the decorators like start, etc., which is all controlled by the LLM and also the logic of this flow. In that sense, this entire flow is a finite state machine. And the concept of finite state machine, I would rather suggest you guys to take a look at it. It's one of the phenomenal concepts. That is how the flow has been modeled based on. So try to take a look at that. You will understand what's going on here. And finally, as you scroll down, you will see that the input that you are giving it to the flow kickoff. So this is the maker recipe flow that we are instantiating, and then we are kicking it off here. So you can see that we are asking for the recipe for rice dumplings to be served for 15 people and write to .chef_recipe.md. And when we actually print the flow output, you will see that it works flawlessly. So again, here you can see that the flow has completed, and it has actually written the data to the chat recipe_md, and it is looking at the directory here, and it has content has been successfully written. The content is also shown here in the final recipe data. So if you go back and if you look at the Windsurf, you will see this recipe, and you will see that all the update is provided here. Now, let us go back to the presentation. So now we have seen the entire process of how this flow works, how the flow is coded, and how we can work with the varieties of crews, agents, and tasks to get the things done. So I believe that, just give me a second. I believe that when you are understanding how to code the flows and integrate crews in that, you will be able to do a lot more with the agents. And the more you practice, the more newer and better ideas for automation of your workflows will come into picture. There are lots of templates out there, but they are not the only templates that you need to follow. You can actually create your own templates if you understand how these things work. So I believe that you have understood, and you will be able to write your own flows, tasks, agents, and crews. Do ping me out if you have any questions. Do leave a like and subscribe to my channel for further updates on similar kind of videos. With that said, I would like to leave the video with 4 words, that is practice, 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 practice. See you guys. Have a great time.